and a guy that has called all sorts of TFC games. Great pipes, great atmosphere when he's there calling them. Luke Wileman of TSN joins us right now. Luke, welcome and thanks so much for making time, my friend.
Hey, Anthony, great to be with you.
Pleasure's all mine. Luke, let's talk first and foremost about the Montreal Impact and the Red Bulls. I want to get your thoughts on that. I'm hoping you got a chance to watch a little bit of that before the TFC game. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was a man's match. I really believed it was veterans going up against veterans. And this Montreal team right now, Luke, for my money, is really firing on all cylinders. You got a Piatti, you've got Mancuso, but you got a Bernadello as well. These guys are all on page, and the Red Bulls have their hands full. Your thoughts?
Well, they're a really experienced team, Anthony, that's for sure. And that's one of the things that goes in Montreal Impact's favor. And I think the demolition of DC United in that knockout round game was a real statement win for Montreal Impact on the Thursday night before they went to that conference semi-final first leg against the Red Bulls and put in such a good performance on Sunday as well. So I think now that even if they were flying under the radar in terms of that attention in the US heading into the playoffs, everyone has been sitting up and taking notice of what the Impact are all about. And I think that's even more impressive given the circumstances coming in towards the end of the season when everything happened with the Didier Drogba situation ahead of that game with Toronto FC that they played, the penultimate game of the regular season. But I think you look through their lineup and they have difference makers, someone like Ignacio Piatti who can win any game from any sort of position with the fact that he's able to create and also score goals as well. Mancuso has made a massive difference. He really buys into what they're doing there in terms of his ability to win games through scoring goals, but also the work that he'll put in off the ball and defensively. But I've really been impressed, and you mentioned one of them there, Hernan Bernadello, the three veterans in midfield that they've been playing with, Donadel, Bernadello, and then Patrice Bernier, who has had a couple of really good games in the playoffs so far. It was the same last year when he played so well in that knockout game against Toronto FC. And I think the thing for Montreal going into the Red Bulls at the weekend will be just to try and keep it as tight as possible and hopefully keep everyone fit. There's a bit of a scare now with Mancuso coming off in training today with what looked like a bit of a hamstring, so we'll wait and see on him. But the good news is Drogba's training again as well, so he could be a weapon for them coming off the bench. But it's set up really nicely for Mauro Biello, and I hope he manages to pull this one off because I've got a lot of respect for what he's achieved there so far.
I'm glad you said that. That's where I was going next. I think this guy has earned a lot of respect all over the league for what he did in the Drogba situation. He's a young coach on the rise. He has the players' respect in the room and on the pitch. They listen to him. And he's a guy that's got a lot of time to talk about the game to all of us, yourself and myself included. I want to ask you this, Luke. I believe if the New York Red Bulls get booted out of the playoffs again, I believe there's going to be wholesale changes there because this is unacceptable. Great regular seasons, then come the playoffs, they fizzle out, and to me, they have to look in the mirror and say, all right, we've done this one too many times. We need to change it up. Your thoughts?
Well, I think what the Red Bulls have got is an excellent team, and they've shown that through the regular season in terms of the results they've been managing to get and finishing top of the East. But they've done it without spending those massive dollars. And you look at the likes of Bradley Wright Phillips, who's won the Golden Boot this year. Sasha Kleshton, who is up for MVP as well in the league. Then they've got those experienced MLS players that you really need to succeed, the likes of Dax McCarty and a Felipe who's played so well. So, they haven't gone out and spent the big bucks like some of the other teams have, like their cross-city rivals NYCFC. And I think that, sometimes when it comes down to the playoffs, it's not only about experience, but it's about, that big game mentality. And the Red Bulls have come up short last year. I don't know this year when we come into this game. Certainly they're the favorites, I think, coming into the tie. The fact that Montreal were able to keep them off the score sheet is a massive plus going into this second leg. But I still think maybe, despite the fact, I've talked up Montreal and they're in a really good position, I still think probably going home to Red Bull Arena where they've played so well, for me, the Red Bulls are slight favourites going into the game on Sunday, but I hope they prove, I'm proved wrong and that the Impact can cause what would be an upset, without a doubt, going in as the team that's facing the team that finished first in the East. If the Impact could pull this one off, it would be certainly something that was not predicted and not expected. I do like, though, what Jesse Marsch has built. I don't think they would start to tear everything down. They have some pieces that obviously have been very effective during the regular season. Maybe they just need that one more difference maker to be able to come into this team to try and change things around. But when you look at the way they're viewed, certainly south of the border, you look at 2 of the 3 MVP candidates coming from this team as well, with Wright, Phillips, and Kleshton. And I think people really think that this Red Bulls core group is one that's capable of having success in Major League Soccer, whether it's now or in the future.
Luke, let's turn to the second matchup of Canadian teams, TFC and New York City FC, getting it on at Yankee Stadium, 6:30 Sunday night. But before we do that, let's talk about the electric atmosphere, the time that I will never forget as a Torontonian, born and raised here. It was unbelievable. It gave me chills, Luke, and I'll tell you, the only other time I heard it this loud, I got to be honest, was at the Rogers Center. I'm sure you were there when they played LA Galaxy and the roof was closed, so maybe we heard it more because the roof was closed. But that night, it was special. And, you know, the supporters have taken a lot of grief for some of the things that maybe one individual or two have done that they shouldn't have did. But these are special supporters, Luke. They're really great at what they've done for this franchise. And it was unbelievable. Describe it through your eyes and your ears.
Well, I thought it was really good on the Wednesday night against Philadelphia Union in the knockout round, even with a crowd that was, 23,000 or something on that night, so still a few short of capacity. But then it got stepped up incredibly on Sunday. And, the last 10 minutes are as good as I have ever seen BMO Field. I think really with the fact that the stadium has been redeveloped and that the roofs are over the stands now, it makes a big difference as well. But this was more a case of just that passion, that jubilation coming through in such a big way of these fans who have stuck by this team week in, week out for the last 10 years, who have had to endure so many downtimes that, now the good times are even better because of what has been experienced these last decade for Toronto FC fans. And, that atmosphere there on Sunday was as authentic as you could get in terms of that soccer atmosphere, that you could have plucked that stadium from Europe and put it in the middle of Toronto and you would not know the difference. And it's just a fantastic place to be when it's like that. And I think the fans deserve an awful lot of credit. Greg Vanney said after the game, obviously, that it's as good an atmosphere as he's ever seen at BMO Field. And I just wonder what it could be like if you start to let your thoughts drift ahead to the next couple of games. And the dream scenario, of course, would be that Montreal TFC Eastern Conference final, and what a night that would be at BMO Field, with the second leg there for the right for a Canadian team to get to MLS Cup. And if they were able to host MLS Cup, it would just be off the charts. And I think right now that would be the best show for Major League Soccer if Toronto was able to host MLS Cup. Everybody would sit up and take notice, and it would be a great reward for those fans who stuck by this team. So I think that would be the dream scenario for Toronto FC, to get into a position where they can host and they can have more nights like that. But it certainly whetted the appetite for what could come, not just this season, but the next few years, if TFC can get on that run where they can have regular success. So credit to the fans for an incredible atmosphere down there.
What are the keys to success for TFC to come away with an important, vital result to move ahead in New York City FC? To me, I see it simply like this, Luke, and then I'll throw it to you. I've said this. The second most ever important signing in club history to me was Michael Bradley. If Michael Bradley is on his game, TFC goes through to the next round. If he gets rattled, like Frank Lampard was saying today, that they're going to go at him, they're going to rattle him, they're going to be physical with him, I have concerns, because to me, he is the key. He is the guy that mixes the drink. And also, as well, I'm concerned that Harrison and Mendoza, they didn't look great in finishing their chances for New York City FC, but I believe with their speed, they could cause a lot of problems for the TFC defense. Your thoughts, Luke?
Well, I think Michael Bradley proved on Sunday night, why he's worth being that designated player, the player that is so crucial to Toronto FC having success. There are times during the regular season where he hasn't hit those heights, where they can win games without him needing to play in that sort of a role. But when it's all on the line in a big playoff game like that, Michael Bradley shone, and it was his best performance in a Toronto FC jersey for my money on Sunday night, and it was a massive bonus and a massive part of them getting that result. So you're right, he's such a key. I think the big thing on Sunday is we have to accept the fact that there will be goals. That's something that you get at Yankee Stadium. It's a very tight pitch. New York City FC scored the most goals in the East this season. They will be going for it. But, that second goal that Tosin Ricketts scored on Sunday could be such a game changer for Toronto FC, because with that 2-goal advantage now and the away goals rule coming into it, if TFC can get 1 goal, then New York City FC have got to score 4. And that is a very tall order when you consider how well Toronto FC has done defensively this year. But it's going to be a much different game because of the tightness of the pitch. New York City FC will go for it. I can't see them not scoring. But if they throw players forward, that's the sort of game also, Anthony, that we've seen this year that suits Toronto FC. And one game that stands out was that game against the Red Bulls back in September, where it finished 3-3, and they were trading goals, and both sides were going for it in a very wide open game. TFC has struggled when teams have come to try to stop them playing, to clog the midfield, and that's when, certainly during that run when they didn't have Giovinco in September, they couldn't break teams down, they couldn't score goals. But they've always had success when it's been an open game, when teams have come at them and they've been able to counter, and they have the ability to get quickly from one end of the pitch to the other. They have players like Altidore and Giovinco who can make a difference. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see quite a high-scoring game on Sunday. And, given that I don't expect it to be a 0-0 or for TFC to manage to keep a clean sheet, a high-scoring game would probably be in their favor, because they have that ability to go through on away goals and force the NYCFC to really come out and have to go after it to score multiple times.
Your quick thoughts, Luke, before we let you go, and then I want to ask you a question in regards to Canadian soccer, in regards to the MVP and Defender of the Year. No Drew Moore, which to me, I can't understand why he wasn't in that conversation at all for Defender of the Year. And then I'm just baffled. I can't believe Giovinco isn't in that top 3. Yeah, maybe people say, Anthony, because you're Torontonian, TFC, Soprano. But, okay, if Giovinco shouldn't have been in there, I got to tell you, I thought Piatti. And what about Lodiero, if he had a full season, Luke? Your thoughts?
Well, Lodiero certainly made a massive difference for Seattle Sounders. I don't think he was there long enough to be considered in the MVP race. I agree with you about Giovinco and Piatti. They wouldn't both get in the top 3 for me. I think it's one or another, because my top 3 would include David Villa and Bradley Wright Phillips. I wouldn't have Sasha Kleshtin in there, and that's where I think that this has gone wrong. I would have put Giovinco in there. Piatti's had a wonderful season, but I think Giovinco is probably ahead of him as the MVP. So I think it is a snub, and I think probably that stretch towards the end of the season where he was out probably hurt him in terms of the votes coming in. He was a very close fourth. All sources pointing to the fact that Sebastian Giovinco wasn't far off getting in that top 3. But certainly, if it was for me, it would have been David Villa, it would have been Bradley Wright Phillips, and Sebastian Giovinco. I think you're right on Defender of the Year. I really do not know how Drew Moore hasn't got consideration, apart from the fact that he's north of the border and people haven't seen him too much for Toronto FC this season. He has been part of a defense that has been transformed, to the best in the East from what was the worst in Major League Soccer last year. He has played alongside different partners at the back, less experienced partners like Zavaleta and Hagland. He's played in back 3, he's played in a back 4, he's played with 2 different goalkeepers behind him. He's been solid throughout the season, and he's made a difference for this club, not only on the pitch but off it as well, with the character that he has brought to this locker room. So Drew Moore would have been my Defender of the Year, absolutely without a doubt, in Major League Soccer, and I think it's a massive shame that he's not been recognized.
Couldn't agree more. On a side note, we really appreciate your time, but I can't let you go without getting your thoughts on this. You've spent enough time living here in Canada. You understand the culture now of the Canadian soccer scene quite well, just as good as anyone. I want to get your thoughts on this. Obviously, you know the talks that are out there in regards to a new Canadian league going coast to coast. I tweeted out something today that my source gave me that is 100% factual, that there's strong interest from a big-name club in Europe to take part in this CPL. But I want to ask you, because you come from Europe where you understand how things work, whether it's in the first division, the second or third division, community clubs, big city clubs, on and on. What in your mind, what lessons can you take from Europe to share here to the Canadian, let's say to the Canadian ears at the boardroom, to say, hey, look, this is what worked back home, but here you might not be able to let it work here. What would you suggest? What advice would you give them to make sure that this league gets off the ground and flies?
I think the big thing is that it has to be Canadian, and it has to be a unique solution for our country right now. We can go and we can take the best bits from different leagues around the world, the reasons why different leagues are working. But for us, with the unique challenges that we have in this country, we have to make sure that what we do is a solution that is best fitted for our country at this time right now, for the goal of having our own professional league, being able to develop our own Canadian talent. And it might not look like a traditional league around the world. There might be intricacies here that don't happen in Europe. But I think what we do have to realize is that this isn't something that's going to happen overnight. We need patience. If you look at those leagues in Europe where they have the history, they have leagues and clubs that have been built down the years, and that's something that obviously cannot happen just by the click of the fingers. But it's about having committed ownership groups. It's about making sure that people understand this isn't a moneymaker immediately. There are other priorities, and it's about time and support, and hopefully everyone gets on board and pulls in the right direction, so that in a decade or two's time, we're looking back on something that has made a massive difference for not just people now, but the kids who are growing up in this country, like my 5-year-old right now, who will hopefully be able to grow up knowing that a Canadian Premier League is something that is just normality. And I really hope it gets off the ground and everybody supports it.